He was arrested on the side of the road, humiliated and accused without cause, as the officer was certain no one would stand up for him. But in the courtroom, the officer came face to face with an unexpected figure, the chief prosecutor, ready to tear his lies apart. What happened next will shock even the most seasoned. But let's start from the beginning. The street was quiet, its stillness broken only by the soft hum of Michael Carter's car as he navigated the winding suburban road. The dashboard clock glowed 11:47 p.m., a testament to another long day at the university where he lectured on constitutional law. His thoughts were already shifting to the warm embrace of home when the sudden flash of red and blue lights filled his rearview mirror. With a resigned sigh, Michael signaled and pulled over to the curb, his movements deliberate and steady. Officer Rick Matthews, a middle-aged white man with a rigid posture and a reputation for heavy-handedness, approached the vehicle with a flashlight in hand. His expression was hard, his tone sharper than necessary. "License and registration," Matthews barked, his flashlight beam lingering on Michael's face a moment too long. Michael, calm and collected, retrieved the requested documents. "Evening, officer," he said politely. "May I ask why I've been stopped?" "Broken taillight," Matthews replied curtly, though Michael could see the faint smirk tugging at the corner of the officer's lips. A glance in his side mirror confirmed that both taillights were intact. Before he could respond, Matthews leaned in closer, his demeanor shifting to one of suspicion. "Where are you coming from this late?" "From work," Michael said evenly. "I'm a law professor at—" "Step out of the car," Matthews interrupted, his hand now resting on his holstered weapon. Michael complied, his movements slow to avoid escalating the situation. On the sidewalk, he stood tall, but unthreatening, hands visible. Matthews circled him like a predator sizing up its prey. "What were you really doing out here?" he pressed, his voice dripping with insinuation. "I've done nothing wrong," Michael replied, his calm tone a sharp contrast to Matthews' growing hostility. Without warning, Matthews yanked Michael's arm behind his back and snapped on handcuffs. The rough treatment elicited gasps from a few onlookers who had gathered nearby, their phones raised to record. Michael locked eyes with the cameras, his composed demeanor unbroken. The air crackled with tension, but his silence spoke volumes, a quiet resistance to the injustice unfolding before him. The holding cell was cold, its fluorescent lights flickering faintly as Michael Carter sat on the metal bench, his back straight, despite the fatigue clawing at his body. He hadn't been given a clear explanation for his arrest, nor had he been allowed to make more than a brief phone call. The officer on duty had avoided eye contact, mumbling vague responses when Michael asked for clarification. It was clear this wasn't about justice. It was about power. In the precinct's office, Officer Rick Matthews leaned back in his chair, exuding smug confidence. To him, Michael Carter was just another individual to keep in line, someone whose protests would amount to nothing. Matthews barely glanced at the flurry of activity around him as junior officers checked their phones, whispering about a video from the previous night. In his arrogance, Matthews dismissed the murmurs, believing the situation would blow over. He had cited community safety in his report and made a note about Michael's uncooperative demeanor. For Matthews, this was another routine case, one where his authority would remain unquestioned. But the morning brought a tidal wave of consequences. Across town, Michael's arrest had already begun to spark outrage. The videos captured by bystanders had gone viral overnight, flooding social media with hashtags calling for justice. The footage revealed the glaring disparity between Michael's calm compliance and Matthews' overt aggression, sparking heated debates on local news channels. The precinct's phone lines buzzed with constant calls from reporters and concerned citizens demanding accountability. Matthews, however, refused to back down, doubling down on his claims. "We're here to protect the community," he stated in an impromptu press release. "My actions were necessary to maintain order." He dismissed accusations of racial profiling as misguided narratives. Meanwhile, Michael's colleagues at the university, former students, and members of the community rallied to his defense. Letters flooded City Hall, protests were planned, and his lawyer prepared a lawsuit. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as Michael Carter's lawsuit for wrongful arrest took center stage. Officer Rick Matthews strode in with his usual swagger, his polished badge gleaming under the overhead lights. Flanked by a team of city-appointed attorneys, Matthews wore an air of confidence. He had faced scrutiny before and emerged unscathed. To him, this case would be no different. The department's lawyers assured him that community safety was a solid defense, and Matthews believed he could spin the narrative in his favor. Michael Carter sat silently at the plaintiff's table, his calm demeanor masking the simmering determination beneath. Dressed in a sharp suit, he exuded quiet dignity, a stark contrast to Matthews' boastful demeanor. His eyes scanned the room, but his expression remained unreadable. When the doors to the courtroom swung open, a hush fell over the crowd. Striding in with commanding confidence was Rachel Carter, Michael's older sister. A towering figure in the legal world, Rachel was a seasoned civil rights attorney, renowned for her fierce advocacy and razor-sharp intellect. Her tailored suit and no-nonsense expression left no doubt. This was not just another case for her. This was personal. Matthews' smirk faltered as Rachel took her place at the prosecution's table, her presence like a storm cloud, darkening his previously sunny confidence. The realization hit him like a freight train. This was not an anonymous prosecutor. This was Michael Carter's sister, a woman whose courtroom victories against systemic injustice were legendary. He had walked into this battle unprepared for the sheer weight of Rachel's reputation. As the proceedings began, Rachel wasted no time. Her opening statement was delivered with the precision of a scalpel, dissecting Matthews' actions on the night of Michael's arrest. She painted a vivid picture of racial bias and abuse of authority, her voice unwavering and filled with righteous indignation. Matthews shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the confidence he had worn so proudly beginning to crack. He had expected to defend his actions, but he hadn't expected to face Rachel Carter, a force of nature with truth and justice on her side. The trial unfolded like a slow-burning revelation, each piece of evidence chipping away at the fragile veneer of Officer Rick Matthews' defense. Rachel Carter, armed with meticulous preparation and years of expertise, methodically dismantled his claims of protecting community safety. Day after day, witnesses took the stand, painting a damning picture of Matthews' history. A former colleague reluctantly testified about Matthews' frequent racially charged remarks in the precinct, describing how he often referred to black residents as troublemakers, regardless of context. Community members recounted harrowing experiences of being stopped, questioned, and humiliated by Matthews without cause. One tearful mother described how her teenage son was frisked and detained simply for jogging in the neighborhood. Video evidence from Michael Carter's arrest, which had gone viral, was played in the courtroom, showing the stark contrast between Michael's calm compliance and Matthews' hostile aggression. The murmurs in the gallery grew louder when Rachel introduced records of prior complaints against Matthews, complaints that had been buried under bureaucratic indifference. As the trial progressed, Matthews himself was called to the stand. Under Rachel's relentless questioning, his defensiveness and contradictions became glaringly apparent. When confronted with his own past statements, including a recorded conversation where he expressed disdain for the changing face of the neighborhood, his attempts to justify his actions crumbled. By the end, Matthews was visibly shaken, his once confident demeanor reduced to nervous glances and stammered responses. In her closing argument, Rachel stood tall, her voice steady, yet brimming with conviction. "This case is not just about my brother, Michael Carter," she declared, her words echoing through the silent courtroom. "It's about a system that allows bias to thrive unchecked, that strips dignity from those it swore to protect. Officer Matthews is not an outlier. He is a symptom of a deeper disease. Today, you have the power to say enough." The jury deliberated briefly before delivering their verdict. Matthews was guilty of misconduct. He was promptly dismissed from the force, with further legal actions against him pending. Outside the courtroom, the town erupted into conversations about policing and racism, spurred by Michael Carter's grace and unwavering composure. His ordeal became a catalyst for change, inspiring hope for a fairer future.